Hello again. As I'm sure that I've mentioned more than once, I'm not really a fan of conspiracy theories which link the World Economic Forum to the New World Order or the protocols of the Elders of Zion and that kind of thing. However, I nearly choked on my coffee this morning when I saw what Tony Blair had been suggesting in Davos. I mean, what is he even doing there? And why are people at all keen to hear his opinions on anything? He was Prime Minister almost 15 years ago, it is true, but he holds no sort of official position today. He seems, however, to be the darling of certain internationalist-minded types. Before going any further, I will also remind everybody that I'm not an opponent of vaccines either, but feel very strongly that taking them is and should be a personal choice. Tony Blair says that we need what he calls a proper digital infrastructure in order to be prepared for future pandemics. I quote, "This issue has to do with the technology and the digital infrastructure. I just want to emphasize how important I think that it is. Digitization in healthcare is one of the great game changers," Blair stated, adding that we should help countries to develop these infrastructures which they will need with these new vaccines. Ah, what new vaccines, I hear you ask? What is going on that you have not yet read about in your newspaper or heard on the television news? This was during a panel discussion on the theme of 100 days to outrace the next pandemic. And Blair says that you need the data. You need to know who has been vaccinated and who hasn't been. Some of the vaccines that will come down the line will be multiple shots. Will they, by George? How on earth does Tony Blair know about this? What, in other words, is actually going on here? It will be recalled that in 2020, as the COVID epidemic got underway, Tony Blair was calling for the creation of digital IDs to track disease status. If this sounds sinister, that's because it is sinister. Just in case we forget, this is part of what has led to the crisis in the NHS, because it led directly to the sacking of 40,000 care workers who refused to be vaccinated against COVID. Anybody remember that still? Not only did this mean that those people could not get another job in that line of work, it also meant that a number of care homes could no longer take new residents, which in turn led to bed blocking in hospitals, which perhaps viewers have heard about. The take home message which I'm getting from what Tony Blair was saying in Davos is that our masters are planning a new epidemic, or perhaps I should say, planning for another epidemic. It is a little difficult to distinguish between the two when listening to what was said at that panel meeting. Anyway, Tony Blair knows the answer, and it involves a vast new international database which will allow governments across the world to check at once who has been taking their shots and who is resisting the siren call to have just one or two or three more injections. I don't think that you need to be a fully fledged mad conspiracy theorist to find this rather disturbing. In the description to this video, I give a link to a piece about Blair's speech at Davos.